Above the waters of Lake Lucerne, Switzerland, stands Mount Pilatus, named, of course, for the Roman governor, who legend says is buried there. Pontius Pilate in Switzerland. Okay. Provence in France claims to have the body of Mary Magdalene. Among those who have summited Mount Pilatus's 7,000-foot height have been Theodore Roosevelt, Arnold Schopenhauer, Queen Victoria, and Julia Ward Howe. On top of that is the legend that on moonlit nights, hang in there with me, one can actually feel the presence of the restless spirit of Pontius Pilate hovering over the waters of Lake Lucerne, forever washing his hands. Okay, that's a bit over the top, but hold on to that image. As to the fact-based information about Pontius Pilate, he served, we're told, as Roman procurator for 10 years in Judea. Not a coveted position by any means. It was an exile for one like him whose ambitions were closer to the center of empire, of course, in Rome. 10 years in Judea. He was a survivor. Historians of the first century remember Pilate for doing two things that were either very bold or very stupid. First, he confiscated money from the Jewish temple treasury to build an aqueduct to relieve a terrible water shortage. And he pled desperation in doing this. What was I to do, he said. Even you Jews can't live without water. Second, he ordered his army to parade through the city of Jerusalem, bearing before them the imperial Roman standard, which displayed the image of the emperor who claimed to be a god. The action triggered a bloody riot among the Jews. And this time, Pilate just pled ignorance. Mea culpa, he said. I didn't know you'd get so upset. I imagine Pilate would never have imagined that he would be best known for his supposed part in the trial of a Jewish peasant, an everyday kind of thing during a festival time. It was merely something to be handled as expediently as one could. Well, the story in Matthew's gospel claims that Pilate believed Jesus to be innocent. His conscience led him to offer the people a choice that day: Jesus Barabbas, a murderer, or Jesus the Nazarene, the one called Messiah. Surely they would choose the Nazarene. No, they chose Barabbas. And then when Pilate balked at making good on the offer, Matthew says a riot began, and people said, "If you let this man go, you are no friend of Caesar's." They knew how to get to him. And in a heartbeat, Pilate backed down and called for his washing bowl. The Apostles' Creed puts it this way: Jesus suffered under Pontius Pilate. You read the story and you see the layers of that suffering: physical, mental, political. Pilate took some water. He washed his hands before the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves." One cannot help but think of Hamlet's mother, Queen Gertrude, remember, who, watching the play within the play, says to Hamlet of the female lead, "The lady doth protest too much, methinks." Pilate washed his hands, a most vivid attestation of his own innocence, which only served to underscore his total complicity in the injustice. So here's one more legend about the Roman governor. On the eve of Jesus' crucifixion, Pilate's washing bowl disappeared from his residence. Just disappeared. And ever since, it has been floating around from one household to another, wherever people refuse to accept responsibility for their actions. Carl Rogers, the wonderful, innovative, common sense psychologist, claimed that he could help almost anybody who came to see him. Almost anybody. Except, he said, except those who are adept at blaming others for their own problems. Here's how he put it. If you can accept the mess you're in as your own, there's hope for you and help available. As long as you blame others, you will be a victim the rest of your life. Well, to be fair, Pilate did show some mettle at the end. Remember, over Jesus on the cross, he hung the sign that said, "King of the Jews." Some protested that it should have said, "He said he was King of the Jews." Pilate's retort was, "What I have written, I have written." It's a great story. And like all great stories, it's because of the salient, very believable, very human details from beginning to end. A story about responsibility, right? And one might well say that one of the major themes of the Bible, maybe one of two or three, is the theme of responsibility. You find it from the beginning to the end. God asked our first parents, Adam and Eve, not to eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge in the garden. So goes the story. And when God caught them red-handed, the man said, "Well, the woman you put here, she gave me to eat, and I ate." And in doing that, Adam blamed God and Eve. Then the woman had her turn, and she blamed the serpent, at which point I imagine the serpent looked at God, and God looked back at the serpent, and they both shook their heads and rolled their eyes. And Adam and Eve's son, Cain, the murderer, asked God this question, "Am I my brother's keeper?" And in order to teach his disciples that the answer to Cain's question was, "Yes, you are your brother's keeper," Jesus took a towel and a bowl, yet another bowl, on that very first Maundy Thursday, and washed their feet. Most were struck dumb, we're told. "One of you will betray me tonight," he had said to them at the meal prior to the washing. Sobered by this, they asked in return, "Is it I, Lord?" So to their credit, they each wondered if they might not be capable of betrayal. Terence Publius Afer, the Roman playwright who was of African descent, put it this way: "I am a man. Nothing human is alien to me. I am a man. Nothing human is alien to me. Meaning, as a human being, I am capable of the most sublime, selfless action. And also being human, I am capable of committing the worst atrocities imaginable. Let me suggest that only when one makes one's peace with that can one resolve to be vigilant against evil and choose daily to act out of virtue for the greater good. Making peace with that is part of what this service of Holy Communion is about, I believe. To come forward for communion on this night or any day is to embrace our own humanity, as Terence Publius Afer sketched it out for us. Here, most particularly though, on the eve of Good Friday, we are invited to claim our own culpability about whatever it is that's going wrong with this world we live in. Here we say a reluctant yes to all that we have done and left undone. Responsibility means looking into a mirror and realizing there that we may see in it the face of Pontius Pilate and also the human face of Jesus. And if we are honest, we will realize that both of those images are hard for us to acknowledge. But come anyway. You are invited. The feast will not be complete without you being here for it. Amen.